Hey guys, Marsling here, bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. And so today we are going to go in and do the top 10 EZA TURs tier list. We had the LRs yesterday. I'm not sure why people split them up this way. I'm sure not everybody does, but I guess it's probably like the pattern that I got into because everyone else does this, right? But when it comes to the LR tier list, I always put in the EZAs as well. Whereas when it comes to the TURs, I do all the EZAs as a separate list and then the non-EZAs as a separate list. I don't know if maybe that's just because when it comes to the LRs, the difference in power is pretty great, so that like the best LR in the game, like, you know, you got the new anniversary LRs, are still better than the best LRs with EZAs. Whereas when it comes to the EZA tier list, or like the TURs tier list, I think even some of the best TURs in the game, non-EZA, would not end up being in the upper part of this list. I mean, maybe some of them would, but let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think all the TURs should be together, EZA or not? Or do you think keeping them separated by EZAs is the right way to go? Either way, that's how I've been doing it, so that's how I'm going to continue to do it, at least for now. But do let me know your feedback, and if it's something that a lot of you guys would like to see, maybe I will do a list like that going forward at some point in the future. So as always with these tier lists, we'll get the boring preamble out of the way. Most of you guys, if you watch my tier list videos and you actually watch the video and don't skip straight to the end just to look at the list, you know exactly what I'm going to say. All of these are based on my own opinion and my own experience with me playing the game. Yours may differ, especially if, you know, sometimes you use a unit, you get really good luck, and every time I use them, I get really bad luck. You're probably going to put them higher in your personal list than I am. So it's all based on my own personal experience with the game. If you disagree, do let me know down below in the comment section why. I'm always interested in having the discussions with people in the comments when people are actually up for having a conversation, right? And not just putting a, like, you know, lol, you put this guy here. It's like, I did, yeah, and I explained why in the video. So I'm not sure what you're contributing here, but yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know your personal lists down below, but we'll go ahead and jump straight in. So at number 10 we have the Tech Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta that transforms into Majin Vegeta. This guy was definitely higher for me on previous lists because I thought he was underrated. Maybe I like him a little bit more than other people. I've always liked this unit since his initial release, so maybe there was a little bit of bias there, I don't know. But like my LR tier list, I am basing this off of not only all the, you know, the new content that's come out, like the new red zones and stuff like that, but there's also been a lot of thought put into some of these units for things like the Formidable Battles event, which is a very difficult event that is very short and very difficult right from turn 1. And so this guy, unfortunately, is going to struggle in some of those situations based on his transformation condition. Like if he's not on turn 1 for the first fight, you're probably not going to see him transform, right? Because he can transform on turn 3 as long as the enemy is 50% or more HP. So if he starts on turn 1, that's his ideal start for this new event, right? He can get caught because in his base he's not particularly great. But then once you get onto turn 3, a lot of the time in those formidable foe fights, you kill the first phase in 2 turns. So you get onto turn 3, and then he transforms into Majin Vegeta, and then you're going to be fine. The times when he's going to be obviously really annoying is things like some of the red zone stages with multiple phases, where he gets caught in a situation where he's constantly coming onto the rotation when the enemy has too low HP and he never transforms. But again, this is where a lot of the units on these kind of lists can be down to RNG. Like when this guy first came out and I did my initial showcases and my initial runs and stuff with him, I just got obviously good RNG and I never really had trouble transforming him. And when you transform into Majin Vegeta, he is really, really good. He can do some decent damage. Post super attack, he's incredibly strong defensively. He's just a very good unit overall. And so, you know, as I say with a lot of these lists, the top 10 units in each of these categories are getting to the point where they're so good. Not only is there not necessarily a huge gap between each one, especially the ones that are next to each other, but just being at number 10 doesn't mean that he's bad. He's last out of these 10 units, but he's still a very, very good unit in the game. So Tech Super Saiyan 2 to Majin Vegeta is certainly very strong, and he is at number 10 for me. So then we go on to number 9, and we have the physical Trunks and Goten. These guys have been very interesting because, like, teams will be coming out that give them buffs fairly regularly because their only real restriction, which I kind of feel like you're not running them unless you're meeting this factor, is all allies attacking in the same turn must be Kamehameha category allies, and then they get 30% extra damage reduction. Like for me personally, I'm not running them unless I'm running them on a team where they will be on a turn with the full Kamehameha allies. So if you have a team entirely made up of those characters, you can obviously just throw them on that team. You could use them as a floater and it's not going to matter because they're always going to have their passive active. Otherwise, you can set them up if you want to use them on rotation, putting them with a good slot 1 unit that's in Kamehameha and just making sure all your floating units on the team are Kamehameha. So it's not necessarily the worst restriction in the world, but it is a restriction that depending on the types of teams you want to build, there might be certain teams where these guys just get left out because of that restriction. But obviously, you know, when they're actually on the team doing their thing, they're very, very good. They hit very hard. They get this RNG chance of getting extra stats, which will obviously make their numbers jump up quite significantly. They have a little bit of dodge chance built in, but for each attack they receive or dodge, they build it up. So they can get up to having 80% chance to dodge. Like when these guys are fully built up and you're running them on the right setup, like they look incredibly impressive. So you could argue them being slightly higher. Like I did with my LR tier list, I've tried to do the tiers, even though we're doing 1 to 10, I've made some of the number tiers the same color because I feel like you could sort of mix around any units within those colors and I could agree. And these guys, whilst they are at number 9, I have put number 8 and number 7 in the same color tiers. So on this list, I'm essentially saying you could argue them as high as 7 in the right situations, and I probably wouldn't have too much of an argument against that, right? They're still very, very good. I believe, do they get a 220 lead currently? Yeah, they are on Earth Protecting Heroes, and obviously they're Earthbred Fighters, so they are on Vegito's lead. Maybe I'll have to do a 220 showcase for them. Let me know what you guys think if you want to see that down below in the comment section. But moving on to number 8, we have AGL Super Vegito. Now this guy's in the blue tier, or you'll see the colours on the list, but the same tier as the Goten and Trunks and the unit above. Largely because I feel like he's a tough unit to place because he himself, right, if you're at the, what is it, 50% HP or less, he has a Scouter for 2 turns. But if you're not, then he doesn't. If you have a Scouter in play through some other means, be it like the Tech Gogeta fusion or the new Vegito and Gogeta fusions, any other character on the team that could potentially have a Scouter, you could argue that as long as you know where the super attack is, this guy's probably going to be one of the best, if not the best defensive unit on your team, because he will tank all normal attacks for double-digit damage and then clap back with a bunch of counters, and then his super attack raises all allies' attack for the turn. So if the super's not in slot 1, you can throw him there and he's buffing everyone else on the turn. The problem is, and the reason why he's ended up being a bit lower on the list than some of these other characters, is when we're going into these difficult events, if you don't have a Scouter active, then if you end up, you know, just taking a guess, trying to strategize, whatever, putting him in the wrong slot and he gets hit with a super attack, then he can get absolutely destroyed and you lose the run. So it's really tricky because in the right situations, he's exceptionally good. But in a lot of scenarios, especially in like turn 1 and 2, especially in the new tough event on turn 1, like you're not going to have a Scouter active. You don't know where the super attack is going to be. And if he gets hit with a super, you die. So it's really tough for him because in the right situation, like I say, you have a Scouter active, there's a slot you can throw him and there's like, you know, 4 or 5 normal attacks. He's going to eat all of those, do damage back with counters. He's going to look really, really good. His link set's really good. It's just unfortunate that he can't take a super, but I mean, that's how he's always been. That's what his design is for. He has his own built-in mechanic to detect the supers, but it's only when you're at the HP restriction. He does also give support, which is nice. So he overall very, very good unit for sure. But yeah, the supers are his big weakness, which is why he is quite low on the list. Maybe too low, let me know what you think. But in the same sort of tier as Goten and Trunks, and then this guy right here, Physical Super Saiyan 2 to Super Saiyan 3 Goku, I think I might put him lower than other people do on their lists, but for me, like I've used him even recently on the Vegito team in, I can't remember which event it was, and we got all the way through the event and he still hadn't transformed. So again, this is what I say about these lists are always down to my own personal experience with the game. But for whatever reason, my RNG with this Goku is terrible. And he either never transforms, or I finally get him to transform, and then we just get the super attack and a bunch of normal attacks turn. Which obviously is very disappointing, considering at his full potential, he can be really, really good, and arguably higher than even the list like where I've put him here, even though he's at number 7, he's in the same sort of color tier as Vegito and Goten and Trunks. You could argue he could be above that tier with some of these other units we're going to talk about next on his best turn as Super Saiyan 3 Goku. It's just unfortunately a lot of the time you get stuck with this guy, and whilst he is still good, he's nothing like super crazy or anything. So I don't know, let me know what you guys think for Goku, but I have him at number 7 here on the list. At number 6 we have Tech Beerus. Now, again, I think some other people have Beerus higher. I don't know what it is for me. I've never seen, like, I say never, like, when he first came out, I think I put him at number 1. But as some of these other units have come out that are on more teams, that link better with everybody else, like, I feel like his overall impressiveness, like how impressed I am with him, it just gets lower and lower. Like, you can throw him on teams. I think his biggest thing, the reason why people like him, is because on some of the teams that he's on, he can go in slot 1, which is obviously a very valuable attribute for units to have, especially in this meta. But like, especially if you're throwing him on, say, a movie boss's team, he doesn't have big bad bosses. He doesn't have a lot of links that these extreme characters have. So he seems a bit out of place there sometimes. Realm of Gods, I mean, that's not really a team at the moment in terms of like just a full-on Realm of Gods. Obviously there are teams like the reps of Universe 7 or Universe Survivor Saga in general where you can build teams that are full Realm of Gods characters, but you're not running an actual Realm of Gods lead, so Beerus doesn't fit on those teams. Exploding Rage again is like kind of not really a team at the moment. Not to say in any way that Beerus isn't good, obviously, like, I mean, I've got him at number 6 on the list, but I just don't think he's as impressive as some of the other units above, especially to me. And, you know, it's my list, it's my personal preference. The big thing for me as well is the fact that with no built-in addition or anything like that, he very often just does one super, which, you know, his attack stat's not hitting the same as some of these other units that are above him on the list, and he's not getting any additionals. So I know a lot of people will give him his real value from being able to go slot 1 on some of these teams, but I think some of the other units above him on this list either are capable of going slot 1 as well, or are on teams where there are already dedicated really good slot 1 units, so it doesn't really matter to me too much that they are not slot 1 units themselves. That is a big argument that I know that goes on in the community, whether it's with tier lists or whether it's just rating 2 units one against each other. You know, there are people that will literally say if a unit can't go slot 1, they can't be the best unit in like their particular category. I think that's too narrow, like black and white thinking. If a unit is on a team that literally their team has the best slot 1 unit in the game, and then they are hands down the best slot 2 unit in the game, you can easily make an argument for them being the best unit depending on what it is they're actually doing. So Beerus is definitely good, right? He's at number 6, so we're not saying he's bad in any way, shape or form. I just think for me, the other units above him on the list are a little bit more impressive. But as always, let me know what you guys think down below. But moving into the top half of the list, at number 5, we have Int Janemba. Now, Int Janemba is another one, I think. I'm going to say this is like the last 3 units in a row, but another one that maybe is lower than other people have on their list because he can be really, really good. Obviously, before he attacks in slot 1, he has a, what is it, 90? Is it 90% chance to dodge, or and then it drops afterwards. No, yeah, it is only, yeah, it's not before attacking. It's 90% as long as he's in slot 1, and then after attacking it's 70%, which is obviously really, really good. He can hit a pretty decent attack stat. After he's gotten a dodge, he gets a guaranteed additional super. So if you get the hidden potential, he can super 3 times, do a pretty decent amount of damage. He's got good links, right? Big bad bosses, Fear and Faith, Brutal Beatdown, Nightmare. Like, he's got good links. The only problem is, and again, personal experience time, so many runs that I had while trying to get those Formidable Foes stages done where he didn't dodge an attack in slot 1. And even after attacking, like he gets, you know, when he's fully built up and everything, after attacking, when his dodge chance drops to 70, he was just getting me killed. Like, even from normal attacks, he could still take some big damage from some of these really crazy bosses. So it's one of those things, like I say, for you, you could put him in slot 1 and he dodges every single attack every single time. And so then it would make perfect sense for him to be higher on your personal list. But for me, recently, I've just been having some really, really bad luck overall with his dodging. And so it's not been great overall for me for this guy. He's still very good, and obviously paired up with like Buuhan and stuff, he can be absolutely crazy. But Yeah, I've got him at number 5. And then I decided to make the tiers the same color because whilst my personal experience, I think he actually can be kind of better in some of these events. I think you could easily swap them around, but I actually put STR Kid Buu at number 4. In some of these events, like, he can actually go slot 1 until the enemy starts getting really crazy. Like, obviously the new event, especially if it's going to be a slot 1 super, the Formidable Foes, like, he'll be taking a bit of damage. But he's obviously, before he receives those first 6 attacks, he's very, very good with a lot of damage reduction. He's got big bad bosses. He nullifies unarmed super attacks, which is super helpful for the first 3 turns. So in that Formidable Foes event, any characters that are doing unarmed supers, he really can go slot 1 because he guaranteed nullifies their super attack, which is really, really good. And then once he gets his build up, like, he's dropping big attack stats. He's got really good defense, especially after supering. And then, of course, he has his active skill. He does lose out on some of his damage reduction, so it doesn't entirely make up for it. But once he takes those 6 hits and you use his active skill, then he's hitting a lot harder. And, of course, any events where there are Buu Saga enemies, you can use his active skill straight away. So you have the active skill buff and you have the extra damage reduction and everything. So he's really, really good. I think they did a great job with STR Kid Buu's EZA. For him to still be this high on the list, I think he's absolutely exceptional. And like I say, depending on your own experiences, I can easily see arguments for Janemba being higher than Kid Buu. But like I say, he's lost me quite a lot of runs recently. So maybe it's just because of that. And the next time we do a list, he'll move back up over Kid Buu. But like I say, I put them in the same color tier. So if you want to switch them around and have Janemba at 4, I think that's perfectly fine, right? So moving on to the top 3. At number 3, we have STR Super Gogeta. So I do think Gogeta is better than Janemba. Even though he's not a slot 1 unit, he's a unit that goes in slot 2, but once he's built up and he's attacked, his post-super defense and his damage reduction is so good that he is able to tank these same kind of hits that will kill Janemba if he doesn't dodge. So it's tough to compare the two because they're very different. Janemba goes in slot 1, Gogeta goes in slot 2, and Janemba's defense is based around dodging and not just straight up tanking, whereas Gogeta, after he's attacked, will tank. So they're just very different units. If you put Gogeta in slot 1, he's going to get destroyed. If you put Janemba in slot 2, I mean, he doesn't get half of his passive active. He's not doing the same role that Gogeta does, right? So the two units are very different, but I find myself, like, with both of them, they kind of are auto runs on their team. Like, if you're running the Glorio leads team, if you're running like a Movie Bosses team, I would be running Janemba. If I'm running a team with the new, like, Gogeta and some of these other characters, Gogeta is very often like the character I'll throw on the team to fill the last slot because he is very, very good. And he is also providing support to the rest of the team as well. If you are the second or third to obtain key spheres, he gets allies 2 key and 40% attack. So you could throw him on a team just to be a third slot unit, and he's going to be hitting nice and hard, tanking relatively well, buffing the rest of the team. I mean, I say relatively well. When he's fully built up, he has the potential to tank some pretty big damage supers, and he lowers attack, which is really useful for the new difficult event as well, because all of those bosses can actually be attack lowered. So I think Gogeta is really, really good. I could see arguments maybe for him being above the guy at number 2, but the explanation for 2 and 1 is fairly straightforward, I think. I mean, you guys can probably guess, right, as there's only 2 characters really we could consider in the top 10 that I haven't mentioned. So at number 2, we have Texel. And I'm going to talk about these two at the same time, because the reason why Texel is at number 2 is because Buuhan is at number 1. And that might sound like an odd way of putting it, but it's because when you look at their passives, Texel basically just is Buuhan with some slight differences. And I think with the slight differences that they do have, Buuhan is better. But because the two units are so incredibly similar, like, it doesn't make sense to me in my brain to have a unit in between them because they're so similar. Like, their performance is very, very close in terms of numbers. The big difference is Texel has probably got worse teams and worse link partners, whereas this guy, of course, has multiple really good boos that he can go with. I mean, Cell obviously has big bad bosses, so he has some good big bad bosses partners, but he's not getting a lot of his other links active. And the thing is as well, when you look at the numbers they do, I did the showcase for this guy when he got his EZA on one of his 220% teams, because he's on Battle of Fate, so he gets 220% from Frieza, he gets the 77% support from Frieza in the first turn as well, and even in that setup, like with the same number of orbs obtained, he's hitting lower numbers attack-wise than this Buuhan is on a 200% team with the same number of orbs collected. So Buuhan hits a lot harder. He has the ability to get more damage reduction from the orbs, whereas Cell, it is kind of focused around him fighting a superclass enemy. And the problem is, in the meta at the moment, there's not a lot of really good superclass bosses. So that's why I've put him in the same color tier as Gogeta, because at the moment, this guy can sort of match up to, or just come under, just underneath, the performance of Buuhan, but only in his optimal setting, which is against a superclass enemy, which we don't have a lot of. Like, the end game difficult fights are not really against superclass enemies. So I could see reasons for sliding Gogeta just above Tech Cell, because Gogeta doesn't really need to be fight. I mean, to be fair, against a superclass enemy, Gogeta is slightly worse because he doesn't have guaranteed guard. So he does have an enemy condition as well, but it's the opposite to Cell, whereas most of the events we're doing at the moment are against extreme class enemies, which is where he gets his better buffs. So if we're talking against an extreme class boss, I would argue that Gogeta probably is better than Cell, because then Cell is even more so not matching up to Buuhan. But Buuhan's at number 1 because he is just absolutely ridiculous. He potentially was a mistake. Every EZA or Super EZA is now always going to be compared to him until the next best one comes out, and every other EZA or Super EZA that comes out that isn't as strong as him off the bat on paper, people are already going to complain that why are they not as good as Buuhan, because this guy is just very, very good. The only thing he can't really do is slot 1. But, I mean, in some situations, he potentially can, right? Because if you get the 3 rainbow orbs, he's got 66% damage reduction. The problem is just that his start of turn defense isn't that crazy. But he is a nuking style unit. So, depending on how many orbs you pick up, his start of turn defense can be all right. So, as long as he's not eating a super, he will tank a lot of normals for double digits in slot 1. He's just not really a slot 1 unit. And then when he attacks, like in his best setup with links, I mean, his best setup, if you really want to like juice him up, you've got like the Tech Buuhan domain, you've got Glorio support, Big Bad Bosses active, and some of these other Majin Buu Saga links. Like, this guy's hitting 40 to 50 odd million attack stats. He gets a guaranteed additional super, and then obviously has the chance to do another one as well from the hidden potential. That's the other thing about when comparing him to Cell. Cell has an additional attack that has a high chance of becoming a super, which I don't really understand. When they made so much of the rest of his kit similar to Buu, why does he not have a guaranteed additional super as well? I'm not really sure. Maybe because he heals on super, which is really useful. Buuhan heals when you pick up the orbs, so depending on the situation, both are very good. If you're starting the turn on low HP, Buuhan can heal you up straight away. If you're starting the turn on full health, Cell could be attacking in slot 2 or 3, and he could heal you up some damage that you've taken then earlier in the turn. So they're kind of situational, but both very good. But yeah, really, in their optimal setups, these two units are very, very close. I just think that Buuhan is better. And so because of that, as I say, it didn't really make sense in my mind to put a unit between them because they are so close. But when we're not talking optimal situations and we're thinking about some of the current meta fights, I would say you could put Gogeta above Tech Cell, and that's why I gave them the same color on the actual list. So if we go ahead and take a look at the list, properly zoomed out here so we can see them in reverse order, we have number 10, Tech Super Saiyan 2 to Majin Vegeta. Then at number 9 we have Physical Goten and Trunks, number 8 Super Vegito, and number 7 Physical Super Saiyan 2 to Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and they are all in the same color tier, sort of interchangeable. Beerus at number 6, then we have Janemba at 5 and STR Kid Buu at 4 with the same color tier, and then STR Super Gogeta at 3, Tech Cell at number 2 with the same color tier, and then Buuhan at the top at number 1. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. How would you order your personal top 10 list? Like I said at the beginning, for anyone who skipped just to this point to see the list, all the explanations are in the video, so do give it a listen. I still get people comment saying, why is this person in this spot? And those comments, you can almost guarantee, are always like on the video like 3 minutes after it's been posted, so you can tell, you know, I know you haven't watched the whole video and listened to the explanation, but do let me know what your thoughts are down below. Where do you agree or disagree? What would your personal top 10 list look like? Let me know down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, check out the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.